were different then. I walked to school, and I lived probably a mile away. From 1st grade to 5th grade, I just walked. And there were a bunch of other people in my neighborhood that went to Orrington, so we would slowly pick one person up, and the crowd would get bigger as we got to the school.
And there would be school guards, often, I think, the 5th and 6th grade boys. It was, I think, exclusively boys then who were the crossing guards.
I was a crossing guard, and you wore what was called a Sam Brown belt to show you were a crossing guard, which was kind of a white strap-on belt.
The central meeting place, obviously, was the playground, and always lots of games and lots of kids playing in the playground. When that school bell rang, you would hustle into your room.
And who helped me feel very, very welcome was the old principal, Mr. Hutchinson. I remember him taking me by the hand, taking me to my different classes, and showing me this is the way you need to go to get here, 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 for lunch, for gym, different things like that.
We used to march around to everything. I remember I was, they appointed me to march the students to the girls' room, and I marched them all around the school, and I lost my job.
We started with rug time. We did table time where they went from centers to centers. We had lunch in the classroom. Back then, the children had their own time to play outside. All kindergartners went outside from 11:15 to 12, so they didn't have to share the playground equipment with all the graders. That's what they called them, the graders.
Back in the late 50s, early 60s, because we were a neighborhood school, all the kids went home for lunch. There was not a place to eat here. So every kid went home, and I would usually be home right around noon. The big rush to get home was to watch Bozo's Circus.
It was the black kids who ate lunch in the school because they had not started the lunch program. So they would eat fast. Because some of the black parents would come over during the lunch hour. The kids would eat real fast and then run to get out so they could play in the playground.
It wasn't organized sports like now, but they in recess or after school, in the afternoon, later afternoon, they'd have pickup games like baseball. And I always regretted that I'd be the only kid that they wouldn't pick for the baseball team, because believe it or not, I was sort of pudgy, and they said, oh, you're half German, you've got a German beer belly.
We had read a book about a school in New York, Manhattan New School it was called, and I bought that book for every staff member to read, and we went through it chapter by chapter and said, okay, here's a book that's about a school that's being held up as a model. How are we like that school, and how are we not like that school, and why? And it was very satisfying for parents and for staff to see that here's something being held up as, you know, the epitome, and look at all the ways we are like that.
We used to do way more things for just fun. And as the laws grew, we did fun, but it was also work because you had to get the grade, the score, the whatever, even when you were 5.
By the time I came as principal, everyone was doing everyday math, and they were very, very comfortable with it. Mm-hmm. And they were, in fact, when the district then wanted some master teachers to go out and help other people, a lot of those teachers came from Orrington.
Now, Mr. Ellis, I don't remember if I had him for all of 2nd grade, but I definitely had him for math because he had something that I don't think any teacher probably would do nowadays, but he would reward us when we memorized the multiplication tables by giving us like fun-sized Snickers.
5th grade, Mr. Lickety was also my favorite. He was like really fun. We'd always play this game. It was like the prime and composite game, I remember, and like you'd go around the desks and he would like call on you, and he'd say a number, and you'd say if it was prime or composite. If you won, you'd get a little bean. It was really fun.
On the 100th day of school, we always had a celebration, and the children would count their objects. They would do jumping jacks to 100. They would just make crowns and ribbons, and they practiced 100th day of school. That was always a fun time.
There was a strong emphasis on reading. You would move through different colored reading books as you move along.
We had books and breakfast before school. I don't know if that's the kind of thing they have anymore, but we felt children that weren't getting breakfast, teachers said they would come and read to the children while they had breakfast. So this was another thing above and beyond what's expected of them.
The Battle of the Books is a program in District 65, which is an enrichment program that any 4th and 5th grade child can participate in. And it's been in existence for at least 25 years and probably more than that, between 25 and 30 years. And it started here at Orrington.
There were spelling bees. I could never win because of a girl named Than Moy, whom I liked very much. She was great. I have no idea where she is today. But Than Moy would always beat me.
I remember Walt Jackson in my 4th and 5th grade, and he was a phenomenal guy, phenomenal teacher. He did so many things with us kids. I wasn't the greatest speller, and I would stand up and have to stand next to him and spell the words. And one of the words that I would get stuck on was a lot, because as kids do now, they don't put the space between A and lot. And I would always say a lot, A-L-O-T, and he would always say, sit back down.
Miss Calendar, I just remember every Friday we would have our super serious spelling tests, and we would use shaving cream on the desks, and we would write in the shaving cream, and we'd get it all over our faces, and we'd like spell out the words, and she'd pretend to like grade our desks, but like she wasn't really. And it was just that was probably my favorite memory ever.
In Mr. On's 1st grade class, we made the town, which was you all brought in like cans or boxes and covered them in paper and made little houses and bridges, and we set them up on a giant table in the room, and it was our town. And we had elections, and there was a mayor and a vice mayor, and I was elected the mayor, and my friend was the vice mayor of the town, and it was really exciting, even though we didn't really do anything.
3rd grade, in Miss Calendar's class, we did a unit about like pilgrims and things like that. We got to act out like the Mayflower. She had these lists of like real passengers from the Mayflower, and we all got to pick who we wanted to be. I think I was a man. I chose a man, and like my friend was my wife, and we knew that our characters had a child, so we like made a baby out of newspaper.
The Pioneer show that we did was something that I'd like to say we had a hand in scripting it, though I'm not quite sure. It just feels that way because it was an original piece that we were putting together. But it was to demonstrate our learning of, early U.S. history and Western expansion.
Specifically in 3rd grade was we were learning about Lewis and Clark and kind of the Louisiana Purchase. And it was a play production where, if I'm not mistaken, I was Lewis of Lewis and Clark, and so we kind of went through the Louisiana Purchase and kind of acted it out with Sacagawea.
And I remember my $1 Million Project. I think I did a go-kart, family fun park, and that was actually the first time I had any sort of perception of like money.
I had a bed and breakfast for my $1 Million Project.
I did a bowling alley. Which seems so insignificant, but no, that was so much fun. People got so into it, and it was so legitimate.
We studied German here. We were one of the experimental programs back in Evanston in the 50s.
The building itself has had a fairly lengthy history of housing different language acquisition programs. I believe there was actually a bilingual program here. Then when the district adopted the model of a bilingual Spanish program, that's what it was. And that program was very separate. They had their own classrooms. Things were taught in Spanish. It didn't include the native English speakers. Then the district went to an adoption of a dual language program where they call it two-way immersion, or TWE. In that model, those classrooms were self-contained rooms that were half Spanish speakers and half English speakers, with a bilingual teacher who taught part of the content in Spanish and taught the other half in English.
What we did in the bilingual program was just learn more Spanish and then English to kind of help us with the understanding. And it also actually helped me learn how to read Spanish because I was fluent at it because my parents are, but I didn't, know how to read it or write it, and that kind of helped me do both.
That program was then moved and has expanded into different buildings in the district, and at that point, when that was being moved out of Orrington, the district decided to move our program, which was at Willard, to Orrington. We get families from all over the world. I think most years we have between 18 and 20 different countries represented. When they come to the ESL class, they're in a classroom with students from all over the world. And I tell them that it's our mini United Nations, because that probably will never ever happen to them again in their lives. I've traveled around the world and stayed in my house. I can look at a world map and put a face on just about every country.
The Celebrate Your Heritage, the potluck, I think that gives a real opportunity for everybody to come together and actually celebrate their heritage and to get to know one another. It helps develop community.
Throughout my time at Orrington, I was in Boy Scouts. I played in the band. I was in chorus. I was also on the flag football team as well as the basketball team.
The chorus, the newspaper in 4th and 5th grade, basketball, flag football, Spanish club for a little while. Cooking club when I was in, I think, 4th or 5th grade.
Field day, when we...
Oh, yeah.
The field day, when we'd always... That was, like, a huge culminating point of the year.
There's, like, tug of war against the 2 5th grade classes.
And then I think the teachers always, like, join in, too, which was always fun to, like, see these, like, authority figures, like kicking around a tiny ball.
And Mr. Lickety's class won. I think they might still be on their winning streak because he really, really wanted to win field day every year.
My favorite memory of Orrington was when I went to Camp Timberley for a night.
When we went to Camp Timberley, when I did as a child, that was a real highlight of our time. And I remember that we ate ants. We picked up a live ant and we ate it. And I remember a bonfire at night. I particularly remember a lot of action because I remember a marshmallow hit me in the face and I got sizzled.
Mr. Sagan, my 5th grade teacher, he thought it'd be kind of funny to like knock on the window on one of the cabin where all the girls were and pretend to be a ghost and kind of spook us. And so of course, like, we're 5th grade girls, we're gonna get very freaked out. So everyone was like stampede, just like zoomed to our end of the cabin, and he'd be on the other end, like tap again, and he would all the girls would scream and stampede again, and there was crying.
I was in charge of it for 4 years, the big sale.
Oh, definitely.
Right.
And we worked so hard on that also for the carnivals, remember?
Right. Oh, yes, I remember the carnivals. And Ruth Winters was the bag lady.
Oh, that's right.
You remember that?
I do remember that. I've forgotten that.
My first year here, of course, I'm a little nervous, and we were going to have the school carnival. They were going to hold it outside on the playground. Poured down rain, and thought, what are they going to do? Well, they brought it inside into the gym and to the lunchroom, and it was such a big success they never went outside again.
The carnival was always fun, and I did wear the apron several times.
I remember there was a fortune teller downstairs in the girls' bathroom, and they would have the lights off, and it would be really scary for us to walk in through the dark of the bathroom and then come upon a fortune teller.
Our family has been the head of the carnival food court for the past 7-8 years. It's interesting to first be at the carnival as a kid and just be amazed by it, and then when you get older, let's say middle school or high school, kind of having to work for it.
And the other event that I liked way, way, way back in the days of Joanne was the all-school musical. And on the all-school musical, the kindergartens were together and they had a performance, and it was big time stage, and we'd have this musical that all the classes would then participate in.
First grade was Miss Omler, and she put on a ballet production every year, and that was a huge hit with all the little girls.
Another thing that we did was ballroom dancing, and that was Gus Giordano.
I remember in 4th grade we did a musical about recycling.
Musical event I remember from Orrington was the Dam Rush concerts. They used to usher us into the
auditorium, and that he evidently was on the radio.
One of the special events every year was a professional orchestra that would come to all of the elementary schools, and these were the Dr. Zipper concerts.
He would come with his orchestra, and the whole idea was to introduce youngsters to classical music. I used to love those.
I took piano at Orrington with Miss Kinney, I think. They had a little bit of piano classes. My brother switched to a man that played swing music on WJJD, and he started teaching kids on the North Shore how to play not jazz so much as swing music. The teacher said, you know, it'd be good, Bill, if you composed a little song. And I said, well, what for? He said, well, there's in the school, your grade school or your junior high. So I was 6th grade, my final year at Orrington. I came up with this, Orrington, we hail you. Orrington, we hail you. We will never fail you. Tried and true you stand. Best school in the land. Best of all the friends we've won, our friends we made at Orrington. So, Orrington, we hail you. We are all for you. As the years go turning, often we'll be yearning, yearning for the fun we've had at Orrington. Memories will still be bright, though we be scattered far and wide. So, Orrington, we hail you. We are all for you. And so they sang it, so that was sort of fun to have it singing my song, and then they kept singing it for a number of years. My wife was 4 years behind, so she sang it, and her 2 younger sisters sang it. And the school grounds in the 40s and 50s, actually after I'd left, they were, during the winter, quite a few times, I don't know whether the city or someone, they would flood that.
Every winter they would snowplow all the snow off the parking lot and field, and it would all be pushed up against one of the fences in the parking lot.
And we'd all jump on that, and people would slide down it.
The monkey bars or anything having to do with arm strength, hanging on to. I do remember jumping rope.
They had a large sandbox back out there. They had a big jungle gym, and they had a set 3 swings on this big swing set back there.
I feel like the old playground was a lot more fun. It was older, so it was more rocky. It was rockier, so like you'd like start to fall off things, and there was a teeter-totter, and it was wooden, so it made a lot of noise.
There was like this giant slide.
Yeah, there was a giant slide, and there were these.
Was there when I was there.
Yeah.
There was this giant. It was like
the jungle gym.
The jungle gym. It was like a bunch of bars and squares, like a giant like Rubik's cube. Like you go inside of it, and it was really fun.
I think it changed because I think it was a little too
tire,
dangerous.
Was
like
there a tire swing at one point?
There was a tire swing.
There was a tire swing. And I loved the tire swing, and I was so mad when they changed it.
We would draw with some sort of a black paint, and they allowed us to do it because it was a good game. You'd have a strike zone, and 2 people could play, and you'd have a rubber ball, and you'd throw it against the wall, and the person would be batting, and we would spend hours doing this game.
What I really remember is the kickball field, because I really loved kickball.
Out there's a map with different colored states. Somebody would call out a color or a state or something, and you have to run to it, and like there was a tagger or something. I just remember everyone knew that game, so it's like if you wanted to play, like a game of that was always going on.
They didn't have lockers in the halls then. They had coat rooms.
Where we're filming is my original room. I used to refer to it as the kindergarten penthouse, and it was the original kindergarten room. At the back where the windows are was a porch. It was a screened-in porch, and that's where the children played.
When I first started here, it was 2 classrooms down the basement. Now it's loaded.
When I was here, those were the years when we remodeled the auditorium, put in all the new seats, when we brought in the vintage lighting in the hallway.
We worked hard at decorating the building. I think they remember I was on a ladder putting drapes up in the hallway upstairs. And
another big one, and it sounds kind of silly now all these years later, but it was asking parents to use the front door and to sign in when they came into the building and to wear a visitor's badge. This was all new, probably my second year here. And that caused a lot of hard feelings. I mean, people felt like, you know, rightfully so, this was their school and they always had kind of free reign, and suddenly the rules changed.
We had air raid drills towards the end of my stay here because of the war, you know, the 1941 war.
I'm trying to recall when Sputnik went up, but it was 57 to 59, through that era, where I remember there was a renewed emphasis on science education.
I think anybody that was here in school the day President Kennedy was assassinated, huge impact. So I can pretty much remember, as I recall, I think we had heard about it, but I think it was confirmed to me as I was walking out the south end of the building that in fact he had died.
When I was PTA president, it was during, you know, tumultuous times. It was the beginning of integration, and we all were hoping to do what was best for the kids, and it wasn't always clear what was best for the children at that time. And the closing at that time of Foster School, I wasn't sure that was the right thing to do, because I think all kids like their neighborhood schools.
The very first day of integration, I had already talked with Harold Hutchinson, who was a principal, and I organized for parents to ride the bus in the mornings and then come back in the evenings to accompany the children home. And the reason for doing that is there was an uproar up here at Orrington of parents who did not want integration. And some of the parents had threatened to pull out from the PTA and join an organization called the PTO. And there was so much animosity that we heard about that I felt maybe it would be better if the parents accompanied the children to and from school. And the very first day when we got off the bus, we were met by a teacher. The bus children had to line up before they were allowed on the playground. And if someone stepped out of line, they would not move until the children got in line. And that went on for a couple of weeks. And so I finally took it upon myself to go down to the school district and told them that was not fair, because by the time the kids had lined up, the playground was empty, which meant the children had to go into the classroom. I came over a few times at lunch, and there were the black children eating lunch by themselves. The children at about 10 to 3 were taken from their classrooms, brought downstairs to the basement, and had to line up. And then I guess when the playground emptied, then they could go out and get on the bus. And that's when I realized, you know, that's not integration.
The one event that I remember that did make an impact on the children was 9/11. It happened just before school started. And for days in kindergarten, the children, they could not understand what it was, but they knew what was going on. They would build big block towers and take the toy airplanes and just smash them in until they all fell down.
I just remember my kindergarten teacher, Miss Johnson, was trying to she tried to explain it to us, but I was personally I was kind of out of it. I didn't really understand what had really happened.
And I remember really, really vividly sitting on Miss Lancaster's rug in a circle, and she kind of told us all what had happened, and I remember us all asking questions like, like our plane's gonna hit Orrington, and we were all like kind of scared and flustered.
I remember, you know, teachers and everyone, staff, keeping the students in school without letting us go outside for any reason.
I think we as a staff did a really nice job of going through the day and treating it as a normal day, knowing that, you know, the nation had been attacked, which was a really, obviously, surreal feeling of knowing that your country is under attack, but yet you're not trying to show that because of the children, and you don't want to lend any fear to them. It was, you know, I hate to use just a generic word, but it was weird.
I felt that the teachers were really friendly and interested in their students. Yeah. And we got well acquainted with some of them, even going to visit Miss Woodworth at her summer home and so forth.
And I remember Miss Kempfer because she was rather flamboyant, blonde, and she wore purple heels, which was quite something back then. I remember my mother talking about that.
5th grade, Mr. Lickety was my favorite teacher still today. He was the best.
My favorite teacher was 3rd grade, Miss Scallender, and she was the best ever.
Mr. Dugal was kind of this outgoing, kind of wild teacher, and I believe that I was kind of had a similar personality as a student, so I could really connect with them well.
Probably my favorite teacher was Laverne Mays, for my 6th grade teacher. She just inspired me to do lots of things.
And I had Mr. Jackson for 4th and 5th grade, and he was a marvelous teacher. He was pretty cutting edge at that time, and he was my inspiration for becoming a teacher.
Mr. Jackson was a great teacher in 5th grade. I got into theater when that's when I first started. I am in theater and in art professionally, and my interest in theater began when I was in elementary school. And he did a lot of theater integration just naturally before it was something that people were doing.
I remember Mr. Busico very well because he's still here, and he was here all my 6 years, and he just knew everyone and was really nice to everybody. He still knows me by name, even when I'm not at Orrington. Like, if I see him anywhere else, he knows me.
When I think about our time as student, as teacher, and now our time as principal and staff, you know, I pulled out some kindergarten pictures of Joseph and showed them to him a couple weeks ago about our environment. And one of the things that I'm most proud about, he got married this past spring, and I had a chance to attend that wedding where there were a number of families and kids that I taught and had experiences with. And I think one of the things that I'd love to say about Joseph is that he's blossomed into the same kind, caring individual that he was as a kindergarten student to now a teacher in the inner city of Chicago Public Schools. I think he's just blossomed into a quite talented young man that has a passion for kids and families.
Thing special to me about Orrington is actually the closeness of the families and how the parents and families all work together to make this a special place.
I think that Orrington has a unique culture that's been developed over time. The culture at Orrington School seems to be one of serious academic work. It's combined with a sense of play and lightheartedness. Kids in this school do take their schoolwork seriously. There's the highest respect. I see them all, they all have high respect for their teachers. But I also see a sense of play and a sense of camaraderie that goes along with that.
And Orrington School, it gave you a great start. For us growing up in the 50s and early 60s and really into the mid-60s, it was an era of change in lots of different things. It was a sense of community.
There's a real warmth here that I don't think, and a sense of community that I don't think that you find at every school. And I think that's really been passed down throughout all the years, and a lot of parent involvement. There was that when I was was a kid, and fabulous teachers. I mean, the teachers really have made this school what it is, I think.
I just remember loving coming here and loving everyone here.
Every day here, I at some point or another, I reminisce walking down the hallway of, 35 some odd years ago that I actually was a kid here. It's kind of neat on a daily basis, quite honestly.
I run a school in the city of Chicago, and my inspiration comes from what I learned here through my experiences, not only with the staff at Orrington School, but with, I think, probably one of the most dynamic principals I've ever seen.
It was interesting after I went to Winnetka as principal after Orrington, and we were going to redo the auditorium at Greeley School. So I said, well, why don't we go down and see what we did at Orrington, because it's really a beautiful auditorium. And the parents that I brought here for the tour afterwards said, I can see why you loved it so much at Orrington. She said, everyone is so warm, and the teachers are so friendly, and the children all came up and hugged and wanted to know how things were going. And they said, how did you ever leave there? It was such a wonderful, wonderful place.